Я приглашаю Доминик Зиниса, и он расскажет по поводу токенизации и как же все-таки applications смогут повлиять на токенизацию реального сектора экономики. Доминик?
Thank you for that introduction. It's a really great pleasure to come here. I was actually flying all the way from Puerto Rico. I live there now because we've got this great tax benefit for Americans there. But I was born in Poland, and I always wanted to visit Ukraine. My grandmother was born in this area.
So maybe you will do all the introduction in Ukrainian.
You know, unfortunately, I did take a Russian class when I was 19, and I can read some of the words, but unfortunately, I can't speak it.
So you got my introduction about you, right?
I kind of got. I think you asked people how many of them have heard of Wings.
Yeah. And I said that you're a big one, actually.
Yeah, okay. I think I kind of get these things a little bit. But
Thank you.
Anyway, so Wings, we started this about 2 years ago. It's actually something that is very interesting for me because we anticipated that there's going to be a lot of ICOs coming. And, we thought as a group, like, we read one white paper a month at the time. If there's hundreds of ICOs every week, how do we evaluate them? How do we tell which ones are the bad ones, which ones are the good ones?
Dominic, I'm so sorry. People sitting here, they don't hear you. Can you please? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'll hold the mic properly. And and so we designed Wings for that purpose, but that is not going to be what I'm going to be talking about today. Today I'm talking about the general concept of tokenization and why it's important for us, right? And kind of going over some of the applications that we've seen, that we've evaluated on the Wings platform. And so really what it comes down to is we're monetizing trust. And if you think about the world around us, we pay for trusting that certain things will happen at certain times. We trust that the train is going to show up. We trust that someone's going to show up and fix something that we need. We trust that the news show is going to be on at 6 p.m. So the world runs on trust. And this is a critical part of society that now we get to program this trust for many, many other things to people all around the world. And so one thing that is important here is the decentralized decision-making power. And so if you think about how society has evolved, we've evolved from tribes where one person or a small group of people were making decisions. We had kings and queens. We had democracy. We had bureaucracy, right? But now we get to the point where we can make decisions as tribes of people that have specific interests in specific places from all around the world. If you think about Bitcoin, for example, or Bitcoin Cash, these are people from all around the world making governance decisions around whether to use something or not. They've never seen each other, but they could use tokens and blockchains to make these types of decisions. The other thing is reputation. So, I'm not going to get in front of that. So reputation, when we all lived in villages, we all knew each other. When people started moving to cities, we don't know each other and we cannot trust each other, right? The cool thing with blockchain is that we can start to layer a reputation system for various types of things for people pseudo-anonymously. The way we do it in Wings, for example, is that there's a reputation system that we built in for people evaluating ICOs. And so when they predict the value of an ICO, how much money it's going to be raising, and they are correct, they get a boost in their reputation score. So I, as an investor, can look at these people that I've never met and say, okay, this person or this account is really good at predicting the value of something, and this one isn't. And so that's something that I think that blockchains are great for, and I think that we'll see more of that developing over the next decade. The other part is what the tokens allow us to do is to create micro tasks for specific applications. You look at the way that economies have developed since World War II. We go from large government-controlled industries into things like Uber, where people can basically participate in a type of work by choice. And so with tokens, that allows us to do a lot more of that without the need of corporate structures that have to span 100 or 200 countries. And then finally, digital trade routes. And so what I mean by that is, again, there's interest groups in specific areas that want to make commerce with each other. And so the current corporate structures and regulations that we have are not very conducive to that. I can't do business very easily with someone in China. They can't do business easily with someone in Russia. That person can't do business easily with someone in Africa. But with blockchains and smart contracts and tokens, they can, because those things cross borders, unlike the previous technologies that we deal with. And so what this comes down to is the monetization of information that people hold in specific geographic areas and being able to trade that information and put it onto a global network and pay people for this information, as well as tying that to their particular reputations so that you could see that the information they have is valuable. And so what then that allows to happen is to incentivize coordinated actions of people. If you think about corporate technology and management of people, this kind of technology allows us to sort of manage people in a way that people were not managed before. If you provide the right incentives through the right tokens, through the right algorithms, you can move a lot of people to make things happen. If you think about Bitcoin and what it does, is that it's eating up 1% of electric power in the world today. And why is that? It's because the algorithm was designed in such a way to incentivize thousands of people to mine and buy ASIC chips so that they could eat energy and we can trade Bitcoins freely and easily. And so the last part here that's super, super important is the creation of abundance. And when you think about the monetary system that we deal with, is that governments issue currency for their purpose, but there are areas where there isn't a lot of liquidity. And in those areas, you have poverty, because people cannot trade, because they don't have money, because they don't have access to credit. And the cool thing with tokens is that you can drop tokens into these communities that are impoverished and all of a sudden give these people a way to make commerce and to basically have abundance in their community that was maybe not in the center or not in specific strategic locations. And so the big thing that's happening is that you have the disintermediation of contract enforcement. And if you think about, there's two things that make people do something or enforce something. There's God and there's court systems. And so now we also have math. Because of the blockchain and cryptography, we can enforce things without the need of force. And this is like a huge, huge, huge concept, because it means that we don't have to rely on humans and government, which is flawed sometimes, to enforce property rights. And property rights are sort of, an important thing for people. So we move from the method of laws and legal systems and force into consensus and smart contracts. We move from implied consent to people expressing that they want to participate in the system. No one forces me to use Ethereum. No one forces me to use blockchain. I am forced to use US dollars because I live in the United States. But I can choose which coins I want to use and which communities I participate in. And so some of the real-world applications that we see so far, which are interesting to me, and these are really early stage, I think, still. There we go. So the first one, of course, I went over this already. It's Bitcoin, right? So that was eCash. So the first one that proves that this type of thing works. And basically with what we get with that is this virtual organization of people that work together to produce Bitcoins and transactions and to secure this network so that we can transact globally. The second application, then actually next very important one, is, well, it's basically Ethereum because Ethereum was built for ICOs, essentially. I mean, it was built for dApps and whatever and all that stuff, but ICOs are what make this drive and make the system, right? So already, after 2013 was the first sort of ICO of Mastercoin, and then 2014 was Ethereum, and last year there's hundreds, maybe thousands of ICOs, I think totaling over 6 billion, in all sorts of different industries and sectors. Now, some of these things maybe are not going to work out or whatever, you know, but it's still super, super early in this kind of thing. But it's a free and global allocation process and venture process that allows us to invest in and have a stake in some of these early systems. And so some of the ones that we looked at with Wings, we reviewed 44 projects in the pre-beta, and you know, some of them were really great, and they raised their hard caps. Some of them didn't. Hacken was one of them, and so you see here with it's basically a bug bounty marketplace, and it basically allows you to tap into a global community of people, pay them to squash bugs for your software, right? So before that, you can, of course, you know, maybe have tried to do it yourself. Maybe there's some centralized website, but now now it's decentralized, and it's probably going to continue for many, many, many years for this kind of thing. And then another one is trading without trust. So we reviewed Bancor, which raised about 150 million, and Aurora, which only raised about 5 million. But you see a lot of these things popping up where people can trade without trusting on exchanges. They don't have to use Poloniex. They don't have to use Bittrex or whatever. They can just basically go on Ethereum and they could trade. Some of it's sort of algorithmic based on the Bancor protocol, and that sort of takes care of things for you. But it's another system there basically where they're incentivized to provide liquidity and to provide a safe place for people to trade without trusting in a particular exchange. Another one that we worked on, actually, I was an advisor for this one. It's called ADEX. It's out of Bulgaria, and it's a decentralized ad exchange. And the idea there was that they had a successful business already, and they said, hey, is there a way that we could use smart contracts and this Ethereum technology to get rid of click fraud and that sort of thing? And so, again, like the kind of common theme here is that we can solve problems with these kind of technologies, and we don't have to do it in a trusted kind of matter where we have to trust anybody to achieve that. There we go. So INS is a consumer ecosystem, and this one is connecting the grocery producers to people that are, you know, like you and me, eating food, right? We want to know where the food comes from, and we could track it and reward grocery producers and farmers. And this is sort of an important thing because, you know, I go to the supermarket today, I have no idea where that food comes from. But again, with blockchain, we can solve that sort of problem. And another one is Flixo. Flixo basically was one of the RSK founders, and he had been in the movie production industry. And as you guys know, that there's been a big problem with that for the distribution system and getting people paid. And so here he's basically changing the incentives so that the people who are pirating, they get incentivized now to become distributors. So they are empowered to become part of the system. They get rewarded, while the studios and the producers now get people that help them distribute their movies. So again, kind of like changing how things work and taking, empowering people who previously maybe, were doing piracy or whatever. Another one here is green energy trading. Again, this is about empowering energy producers. So we've got these systems where these people want to produce green energy. They might have extra energy that they want to sell. And again, this is a trustless way for them to do that. Finally, this one is the latest, one of the latest forecasts that we did was called Polyswarm. This one is really interesting. It's similar to the Flixo one in concept. And here it's about, there's people creating malware and viruses, and they make money from this, right? So these guys who came from the antivirus industry said, hey, why don't we figure out a way to pay these guys to help us, find the viruses rather than them going out and making them. So now if there's a guy that was making viruses, he can plug into Polyswarm, and instead he can help defend us against the other guys. Rather than making money off of hurting people, he can help. And so it's creating a marketplace and incentives for them to interact and provide valuable services to the rest of humanity rather than doing something else. And again, it goes with that theme of they don't have to work for anybody. They could plug in anytime they want. They could be in anywhere in the world that they want to be in. And they're working for this algorithm and system and community doing good because the incentives are aligned right. And so when you guys think about like the adoption timeline, kind of, if you look at the top 20 coins right now, they're basically like all blockchain coins, a lot of copies of Ethereum, a lot of copies of Bitcoin, right? And that's great. But we pretty much have the infrastructure layers for the most part. Maybe there's some scaling that still needs to happen. But when you look at the adoption timeline and what tokens are really going to be the benefit are, we're looking at AI systems, industry-specific dApps that are going to come online, things that use KYC and reputation and algorithms, and that's probably going to be like the next, probably going to be the next wave in the next few years as far as adoption and what kind of tokens are going to grow. So I think that's about it for me. Thank you very much.
What do you think about point of view of government regarding tokenization? It's a risk for government or not?
I think it depends on how they look at it. I think some of them do see it as a risk, but I think when they start to really look at it, this is a thing that can drive efficiency and it can drive trust in the economy. So, I would say it just depends on who's doing the explaining. And when you really sit down and talk to people about this, I think they start to understand that this is an interesting technology to bring trust and security to people's lives, right? Because, again, at the end of the day, a well-functioning society is going to respect property rights. And, this is like, if there's a way to do it where we could take out the human factor in a lot of these, mistakes or errors that happen, I think that eventually that's the way it's going to go at the local government level and eventually at the national government level as well.
You're the partner of a bank, or or not?
Yeah, so
your company.
Wings Foundation does not partner with anybody, but we did advise Bancor, and they were the first user of Wings for the valuation and forecasting. So we appreciate that, and as far as like our technology platform, we do provide some integration with Bancor contracts as well. So if someone's doing an ICO, getting valued by Wings, they could use Bancor contracts as the sort of ICO contract as well.
So the programming part of a Bancor is yours, yeah? I
What's
understand that. The programming, the coding part of a Bancor is yours product or not?
No.
No.
So the way that the Wings contracts work is that it's kind of like a generalized forecasting service for crowd forecasting, and then we have a sort of a contract API, and then that contract API can talk to an ICO contract or crowd sale contract, which has the Bancor code in it as well.
Okay.
Dominik, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I suppose that you can answer all the questions that the guys will have.